Watch Ernie, go, go, go. Car right, car right, car right, car right. Watch, 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 watch. Damn it! Oh! Get ready. Dude, 4 heads up in that. Jeez!
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Yes! Yes! Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, 60. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. Through behind you. Control. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar.
He hit an outlap.
What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
What a season of Friday night primetime it has been so far. And we round it off week number 12 as we head ourselves over to Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca, the final round of RaceBot TV primetime for this season, except we got one more to come, of course, in a couple of hours' time. But you're here, you're live, you're on RaceBot TV. It's the Friday Night Crew, Will Vinton along with Connery Maddock. And today it is all about the Global MX-5 Cup Series, Connery. And it's the first run now of the Road to Indy.
Yep, it is, and it's also the first series that anyone that joins the iRacing service, apart from the rookie Mazdas, that they get to experience. And this is basically a very, very classic pairing on the iRacing service. The Mazdas around the Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. You've also got Lime Rock Park and Summit Point Raceway and Okayama on the free track schedule as well. So these drivers very, very used to this. Yeah, and we've got ourselves a stellar field of drivers as well. It's a small field. It's a small race. 78 degrees Fahrenheit is the track temperature, 55% race relative humidity, and wind speed 2 miles an hour. To the north, it's partially cloudy here today. Track length is 3.5 kilometers. If you like your stuff in miles, that is 2.2 miles, as we were just talking about the fact that we have got drivers on track then for this qualification session. Let's spend a little bit of time and show you the drivers then. They have just set their first lap. Pezza Cecilia is leading the way, 1 minute 36.859. Yep, and it looks like he's aboard his second lap there, so it doesn't feel like he needs to improve. And why would you when you're about 0.2 of a second ahead of the next place driver, which is David Nowakowski. There's a couple more drivers coming across to set their lap times. We have 3 drivers that have not set a lap time just yet, the likes of Bobby Zelensky, Nick Haswell, and Gerald Chevalier here. Then he's coming towards what's going to be the middle sector of this lap, this uphill left-hander, now coming up towards the run-up towards the kink as well. This is going to be very exciting on the 5th lap because you can't really go too wide through here.
No, you definitely can't. Actually, we'll go on board then with that driver of Gerald Chevalier in the number 10 machine, heading up towards the famous corkscrew corner that for so many years was a part of IndyCar racing back in the kart days. You also, of course, see this in endurance racing. But the biggest event, actually, of this kart season takes place at Laguna Seca. They have 2 rounds of the championship here, but then of course they have the invitational that takes place at this event. And of course, Glenn McGee, iRacer, 2 MX-5 driver. You know, this is the sort of stuff these drivers aspire to be in. They inspire to come to the invitational that takes place at this track.
Yep, exactly. And, well, you just got to look at Glenn McGee coming all the way from here, iRacing, driving these cars in real life on this same track as well in that series. It's actually fantastic to see his Chevalier. It's 138.8. That's good enough for P number 8 right now. Meanwhile, we still have yet to see Bobby Zelensky come across the line for a timed lap here. He's on his 2nd time lap, but I think he may just have enough time to get this lap done.
There'll be about 5 seconds left in the play clock at the point he'll come past the start-finish line by the looks of it. And let's talk about the car as well. You know, it's a spec car. There's very little that you can do to this car. So actually, it's all about the driving. But having spent, of course, a couple of days at Road Atlanta last year talking to the drivers, they use iRacing as a method of testing the car because of the fact that, you know, it's laser scanned, it's precision model, but actually you don't need to worry about setup changes because there are no setup changes you can really do as Haswell up into P number 8.
Now, you can just do a few little tweaks here and there to do with the weather and personal preference. But apart from that, there is really nothing to change. You have to remember that this car was developed in part using iRacing. They actually developed the car using iRacing in part as well. So this is as good as you're going to get in any simulator to an accurate representation of this Mazda.
Yeah, fantastic car, fantastic series. Moved away from the SSCA side of things. It was sanctioned by them. They used to share tracks with IMSA and races and sanctioning with IMSA. Now it's a part of the Road to Indy. And actually, I was checking out some of the coverage earlier on today as the drivers were actually at Watkins Glen International along with the Verizon IndyCar Series. Indeed, so Zelensky then does cross the start-finish line in time to set a lap. 10 seconds remaining on the play clock. Moves up into P number 9. Let's then show you what is your starting grid for this Friday night prime time. Let's start at the front of the field then. Here's to Cecilia. We know so much about him. We see him so often. He is on pole position. 1 minute 37.859 is his qualifying time here today. Then you got yourself Darren Nowakowski there in 2nd place from Central Eastern Europe. 2 Central Eastern European drivers in the front 2 rows of this field here today. Matt Boozer then in the 3rd place. Qualifying time 1 minute 38.082. And then you've got yourself Tikhon Peletsky in the 4th place. We'll cycle on the grid back and you can see 5th place David Williams is in that 5th position. Then you've got yourself Jeff Gyasi in 6th place. Jake Hewlett in 7th. Nick Haswell in the 8th position. 9th goes to Bobby Zelensky. We saw most of his lap on board. Gerald Chevalier in 10th place. And Dino Filippa rounding out your 11-car field. In terms of the way to make this race work here today, Connery, what's the top tips?
Is just to survive the first lap here. It can be a little bit sketchy coming down into turn 1, a double left-hander of the Andretti hairpin. But once you get up towards the middle of the lap, as long as you have still your car on the track, then you should be good to go. But I think we'll see a lot of bumping and banging, especially on the first couple of laps, you will.
Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca. One of the most famous tracks in all of North America, and it is partially, of course, because of that huge drop down at the corkscrew. But drivers have got themselves 7 corners before they get there. They are lined up, they are ready, they are waiting on the starting grid. That means we can get our show on the road. 11 drivers, 10 laps worth of racing, and they are underway as they come down through that left-hand kink, through turn number 1, into the Andretti hairpin in turn number 2. Good start by Jesus Cecilia as he works himself at the front of the field. Side by side, Matt Buser versus Nowakowski. Looks like Matt Buser will be able to hold that inside line through turn number 2. That was given to him mainly because of his grid position. He moves up into second place.
Yeah, he does, and he proceeds to chase down as he is Cecilia. He has to be there because Cecilia is so quick in these cars. If he can just sit in the draft, then he may have a half a chance at some point as they head their way through the next couple of corners, the double right now. A couple of cars running wide there onto the gravel. That was Pileski and David Williams deciding to take an off-track excursion as they head down onto the brakes here into the left, and I think everyone's through the first couple of corners okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wondering why that was such a clean start, here's one of the reasons why. Highest iRating driver here today is Matt Buser, 7,003 iRating points. The lowest iRated driver here today, 4,700 iRating points, and that shows you the quality. This is WCS level of competition as drivers work themselves through the carousel for the first time. You got that number 5 machine. He's up now into third place. And actually, David Williams versus Nowakowski, they go side by side as they work themselves towards the end of the lap. And Williams has the inside line into the second to last corner, and that will give him the opportunity to move up into the 4th position. But look at them stack up behind as they come down into the final corner.
Almost 3 wide coming down into the final corner is Jeff Giassi looking very, very eagerly for another 2 positions as David Williams and Nowakowski still head side by side up the pit straight. The side by side behind them between Dake Hewlett and Jeff Giassi, as well as David Williams, commander driver. He still won't give up on this position here. Has to hang around the outside 10 number 1. Was there a little bit of contact coming down into the braking zone? David Williams had to go very, very wide, but he manages to make the corner, and he's still heading side by side coming through there. More side by side behind. This is crazy.
Yeah, but Williams should now have the inside line into the next corner. He held it around the outside at the Andretti hairpin and got another commander driver just spinning behind. That is Jake Hewlett there. He's got damage to that number 3 machine as well. So that car tags the number 10 machine or Chevalier around, and it was a wounded car just trying to get back into the race. But then, unfortunately, the number 10 machine there, or Chevalier, is going to be put right at the rear of the field. Here's a quick replay, but it all happened very quickly, and part of it is because of how bunched up that middle part of the field was.
Yeah, I think Chevalier thought that the commander driver on the inside of him would be clear by the apex of the corner, but no, there was just a slight bit of car there alongside. That was Jake Hewlett's, and it just ended up turning around Chevalier in the apex of the corner there. As looking back towards the live pictures, though, now David Williams and Nowakowski still isn't over yet. You've also got Giassi and others there as well. Nick Haswell is going to be a driver in contention here. If he can just close up a couple more tens and maybe sling one down the inside of Giassi, we'll just have to see. As Nowakowski does he have the run coming down into the final corner? Goes deep on the brakes there, almost touches the back bumper of Williams, but still no opportunity for him. Yeah,
and it's very close. P4, 5, 6, 7. 8 on track right now. This does, however, allow your top 3 to break away. And what is important for that number 5 machine of Tikhon Pileski is the fact that he's able to stick right with Matt Buser. Buser got second place in this event right at the very start into turn number 2 on the first lap. Now, Buser is still within 1 second of Jesus Cecilia. And this is what you were talking about, Connery. The need to work through the traffic early, to be able to latch onto your competition and now just stick there in that draft. And it's not the biggest draft heavy track there is in the calendar, but it's still important to utilize it on these straightaways.
Yeah, exactly. And if Cecilia manages to break that draft, he is basically off and away. You saw in clear air in qualifying, he was about 0.2 of a second faster than the whole rest of your field. So the only chance that Buser and Pileski have is just to try their best to stick with Cecilia in the draft. But every lap, it looks like he's just getting further and further away.
and the gap between Pilecki and Williams is currently 2.4 seconds. It's gone up by a quarter of a second this lap alone. Nowakowski just has a little half move as they come through the corkscrew there. Williams, though, now solidly in that 4th position, I would argue. Jeff Gasly is still there haunting Nowakowski. He runs in the 6th place for the time being. Nick Haswell in 7th place. To give you an update at the rear of the field, Chevrolet is actually scored 7 seconds behind anyone else. Jake Hewlett, despite that damaged car, is making a move right now on the outside of Bobby Zelensky.
Yep, and I'll take it side by side off the corner, but Zelensky does not have any sort of run off the corner whatsoever. We'll have to surrender that position, but how much damage is on Jake Hewlett's car? It looks like quite a lot of bodywork damage, but is the suspension okay? Are the tires okay? And can Zelensky make a move back down the inside turn number 1? Nope, he's just going to drop a little bit too far behind to make that happen. So Jake Hewlett's going to be on a bit of a recovery drive here with an injured car, but meanwhile, this battle for P number 4 still rages on.
Yeah, and Nowakowski again got very close into turn number 2, the Andretti hairpin. For those of you wondering why it's turn number 2, actually, turn number 1 is a kind of left-hand kink as you just cross the start-finish line. It's enough of a curve, actually, that in some cars you do need to lift off the noisy pedal. Nowakowski gets himself a bit of a good run out of this corner, but the thing is, you are traditionally supposed to go single file here, and Nowakowski thought about slung it down the inside of David Williams, but it pretty much, as he said at the top of this broadcast here, Connery, single file through there on the run up to the corkscrew.
Yeah, the only time where you'd even consider a move like that is on the final lap as a move of desperation, as they head their way on the brakes coming down into the corkscrew. That's another area that a last lap pass can happen coming down into there. One of the most one of the most dangerous corners in motorsport, especially one of the most exciting corners, as the track just drops away from you. It's almost a sheer drop straight down coming through that chicane there. But looks like everyone's ran a little bit wide there, catching a little bit of the gravel. But Nowakowski's still not giving up, still applying the pressure to the back of the corner driver ahead of him. And he needs this run off the corner now. He'll just sit in the slipstream here. I think he's going to be alongside for turn 1.
Yep, so there is Nowakowski then getting in the draft, looking down to the inside. Very close angle there as they come down in towards that first corner. But Nowakowski moves himself up into 4th place. That was a power move down into turn number 2 then on lap number 5. But Williams held it on the outside once before. Wasn't able to do so this time. In fact, kicks up a lot of dust on the exit of 2 and is almost now at threat. They're going 3 wide. That number 9 machine of Jeff Gasly is such an opportunistic driver in this race.
Yeah, it really is. He sees those 2 drivers battling ahead, and he's just going to slip his nose in whenever he finds the opportunity as the 2 cars ahead of him slow down because they are fighting. But here comes Nick Haswell, also looking for opportunity coming down into turn number 5, just backs out of it, just swerves right back in line to still keep this as a train of 4.
Yeah, there's a replay then. We're looking at Jeff Gasly in terms of where our camera is focused, but look at that David Williams with Nowakowski battle. You can just see how wide both those drivers push off at the exit of turn number 2. Now, you have got to remember that in all series on iRacing, you've got yourself incident limits, after which point you will be disqualified. And this is the track when you can rack them up very quickly, getting into the dust, into the dirt, like we've been talking about. We are back on board with Jeff Gasly, currently in 6th place, but he's going to lose a bit of time as he comes into that second to last corner, and those 3 have spread out a little bit. I don't think Williams is anywhere near close enough to make a move as they'll head towards turn number 1 and 2 again on this lap. So what we can do is focus our attention back to the front of the field. Hezza Cecilia leads by 1.4 seconds right now over Matt Booster, but Booster now's got company in terms of that number 5 machine, who is not allowing him to attack, making Booster go into defensive mode.
Yeah, and that's all he has to do right now because Cecilia's basically broken the draft at this point. He's running 0.2 of a second quicker than the rest of the field, like he did in qualifying. So he is basically off and away right now, and not really any chance for anyone else behind to win this race unless something happens to that number 2 machine. As the rest of the drivers head their way through turn number 4 now. Pilecki searching for that run, but doesn't get it coming down into turn number 5. You will just have to wait. But the thing is, in a sprint race, you can't really wait because we already have about 4 laps to go.
Yeah, indeed, sir. And the thing is, Cecilia actually has lost a little bit of time this lap to Booster. It's about 1/10 of a second. And you think, okay, that's not much. It's still 1.2 seconds a gap. But if he gains that same amount again, he's back into the draft. And all of a sudden, this could well become a 3-horse race again. But I think the way it is is that Cecilia is better in the middle and final sections of the racetrack. Busa is better in sector number 1.
Yeah, and you can just see that gap visually increase as they came through the corkscrew there. Just Cecilia just gets an amazing run coming through that section of track, and there's not really anything the other drivers can do about it. They're just going to have to try their best to try and get back into the draft. As again, P2, P3 still very close coming through the final hairpin, but no run off the corner for Pileski, but he will have the draft. Is it enough to make it side by side coming down into turn number 1? He sits there in the toe that is closing. I think he's going to have an opportunity here, Will.
Yeah, he's going to look to the outside into turn number 2. What you just saw, by the way, oh, what a power move there. That's a good old Nigel Mansell dummy that they tried doing into turn number 1 and turn number 2. But Pileski will remain side by side for the moment with Matt Busa. Busa on the outside. Inside line goes to Pileski. It was a bit of beating, bit of banging, but that's what you kind of do in these Mazdas at times. They stay side by side. Through turn number 4 they come right now. And actually, this will give the advantage back to Matt Busa because the next corner is a tighter left-hand corner as they work themselves through, almost making contact again. This is fantastic wheel-to-wheel racing. This is exactly what the Global MX-5 Cup Series was designed to do.
It absolutely is. Side by side through the kink, they'll have to go, and Busa's just going to have to be forced out there, just forced to lift as Pileski tries to take the corner away from him. He has to drop back now many tenths of a second behind and do that work all over again, and that is why he cannot go side by side through that kink there. And now Matt Busa has to be worried about the drivers behind him, the likes of Nowakowski, Williams, and Gassi, because of how much time he lost.
Yeah, and the thing for Busa there, he was as worried as much of that little sausage curve on the inside of turn number 7 as he was to the fact of pushing up sideways into the driver of Pileski. Now already 1.3 seconds is the gap from lifting off in one corner there. That was a perfectly timed move by Pileski down at the start of the lap, but you have to have the dedication here to run too wide through turn 2, through turn 3, through turn 4, into 5 and 6.
Yeah, it is a skill that you definitely have to hone, which is why drivers like using these cars just to hone their racecraft a little bit. And well, Matt Busa is right to be concerned about that kink on that curb on the inside of the kink there, because I actually have seen that curb flip a couple of cars before, believe it or not.
Yeah, Jeff Gyasi just moves himself past David Williams. There does seem to be a little bit of damage actually to the front end now of Williams's car. So that will mean both the Kyanders aren't as perfect as they would have been when they rolled out of the garage at the start of this event. But Nowakowski in 4th place, Gyasi in 5th place, Williams now down into P number 6. It's worth, even though we've only got 2.5 laps to go, to just have a look at the people who've moved up and down this field here today. Pileski up 2 places, Felipe up 3 places, but actually Felipe was involved in a little battle with Jake Hewlett through the corkscrew a lap ago, and those two pretty much made side-on contact 3 times in 3 corners.
Yep, they did, as David Williams having trouble breaking into the corkscrew there, and that was because Jeff Gyasi had a very, very horrible kink there and just pushed way, way wide, allowed David Williams to get himself back through, and that is actually back through. Gyasi had made the pass earlier, but David Williams is back through on him, so Gyasi not able to hold the position as they head their way down into the final corner. Huge dummy from Gyasi down the inside. David Williams tries to defend, a little bit of contact on the curb there, and there's also going to be Nick Haswell through as well.
Yeah, so we were having a look at the replay of that number 9 machine of Gyasi, who lost the time down at the kink. Actually, exactly what we were talking about, that sausage curve that we were so worried about. But here's a replay then coming in towards that final corner, and let's see it all build up then. They go from 1 wide, and then you got yourself Gyasi looking dummying down to the inside. Second time today he's done that. Then Williams gets 2 hits. Down the inside goes Nick Haswell. Haswell gets a huge run of steam, but can't quite make the move over the driver of Jeff Gyasi as they now work themselves onto the second to last lap of this motor race. In fact, they've only got about a lap and a half to go now, but we've seen some great racing here today.
We've seen some absolutely fantastic racing, especially with those dummies that Giassi has been pulling off. But now his car has damage. The car of David Williams also has damage as well. The only really undamaged car in this fight is Nick Haswell, and he currently leads David Williams down into the kink, but pushes a little bit wide, slides through the apex of the kink, gets on the gravel, manages to control the car. That's a fantastic bit of driving there, but this still isn't over because David Williams has the run coming up into the corkscrew. They might go side by side through here. No, David Williams just going to back out. Oh, the mover, is he? He gives a little bit of a shot to the bumper to Nick Haswell coming through the corner there, but the positions stay the same.
Yep, so Nick Haswell remains in the 6th position for the time being, although it's worth noting that Dino Filippa and Jake Hewler are catching these two drivers. We are about to head ourselves onto the white flag lap here at Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca, to round off the iRacing Global MX-5 Championship as Heza Cecilia, get this, a 4-second lead in a 10-lap race.
Yep, he is absolutely unstoppable, and some might call him the Martin Kroenke of MX-5s.
Yes, indeed so. So this then is Heza Cecilia working himself through.
Ooh, Williams. Yeah, Williams and Haswell just had a little bit of contact coming down into turn number 1 there, Will.
Yeah, and that's not the first time they've had that. Haswell's still ahead, though, of David Williams. And you talk about desperation moves. This is the time to make desperation moves. There's a couple of them going on. Matt Buser in 3rd place, under pressure from David Nowakowski. Then you got David Williams versus Nick Haswell. We're keeping an eye on the times right now. Williams and Haswell seems to be a little bit closer. Here comes Williams down to the inside. Not quite able to make it, but it's now about, can you get the momentum to try and go around the outside into the next corner? The answer will be no. Ahead, here's Nowakowski. Is he going to try and make a move into the corkscrew or the last couple of corners? We're going to find out in just a few seconds' time. They work themselves down the corkscrew. Then that left-hand flick for the final time. It's going to be a case of maybe close, but will he get it? I don't think Nowakowski is close enough yet. Maybe a move into the final corner. We'll keep an eye out on that because here comes Heza Cecilia into that final corner now himself. He will round out his championship campaign with a win as Heza Cecilia will win out here at Laguna Seca. 2nd place to Polensky, 3rd place to Matt Buser. Nowakowski has to hold on to 4th. And actually, it wasn't that entertaining a final lap, Connery, because neither Williams or Nowakowski could find a way to make a move up in positions.
Yeah, there was just a little bit of bumper banging coming down into turn number 1 on the start of the final lap between Williams and Haswell. But apart from that, then, well, Haswell was just a little bit too far ahead for David Williams to be able to do anything at the end of this race.
But still, overall, a very entertaining, a very fun race to watch here at Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca. And here, then, is your final race results. It's a treble crown there for Heza Cecilia. He gets the fastest lap, set that early on lap number 2. Got pole position, took the race win as well by 4.3 seconds over Tikhon Polensky. Then you got yourself Matt Buser in 3rd place, Darren Nowakowski in 4th, Jeff Giassi in the 5th place with Nick Haswell in 6th, David Williams in the 7th place, Dino Filippa in 8th, Jake Hewler in 9th, and then Bobby Selensky rounding out your top 10. There's only one driver on the next page. That's the driver who comes home in P number 11. That is Gerald Chevalier. We saw the big part of that issue was the fact, of course, he got into an incident with Jake Hewler early on into the motor race. Found it very hard to recover from that. We're going to step aside for a couple of minutes here, ladies and gentlemen, on Raceport TV. And then when we come back, we'll have a chat with drivers if they decide to come and talk to us. But also, we'll talk about what's happening in a couple of moments' time on iRacing, and then also what's happening tomorrow in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. We'll be right back. You're watching Raceport TV on iRacing Live.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. All right, all right, all right, all right. Watch, jam it. Get ready. Dude, 4 heads up in that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, 60. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. Through behind you. Tell. Clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar.
He hit an outlet.
What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what was a short but fun race to round out the iRacing Global MX-5 Cup here on Racebot TV and on iRacing Live. And actually, you know what, what I really love about doing primetime is we get to do something different every week. And actually rounding things off with the Global MX-5 Cup, you know, it's a short race, but it's a fun race. And that really does reflect the kind of diversity that you and I have spent the last 12 weeks commentating.
Yeah, I absolutely love this Friday night primetime broadcast. And as you mentioned, we just get to showcase so many different series that perhaps may not otherwise get a broadcast here on the iRacing channel. And the Global MX-5 is one of them. It's one of the series where you first, as a new person to the service, you get to race in after you've passed your rookie license, and it's good to give a shine of light on these series from time to time.
Yep, here's a look then once again at your top 10 from this event. Hezzy Cecilia wins by 4.3 seconds. We didn't really talk much about Hezzy Cecilia after he broke that 2-second barrier, but he just put his head down, and you're right, it would take Hezzy Cecilia to make a mistake for him to lose this motor race.
Yeah, exactly. Once that draft was broken, there was really no catching Cecilia at all. I mentioned it during the broadcast. He was basically the Martin Kroenke of MX-5s, and like Martin Kroenke in the World Championship Grand Prix Series, comes away with the win.
Yeah, we have got Matt Boozer, who came home in the 3rd place. And Connery, why don't you have a chat with him?
Yep, hello there, Matt. And, well, you basically didn't, well, you qualified 3rd place and finished in 3rd place, but that wasn't really the whole story. There was some exciting battling between yourself and Nowakowski.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun battling early, trying to catch up to Jesus, but he had some incredible pace and couldn't hang with them. I stayed at about 1.3, 1.4 seconds behind him for a few laps. And then Tikon caught me there, and we had a nice little side-by-side battle for the corners, and I guess he thought he had the line there and just kind of came down a little early and made some contact, and luckily he was able to not spin out from that and hung on to 3rd place.
Yeah, that was a very, very scary moment indeed, and there's really not many situations where 2Y coming through the kink could be a possibility, but thankfully both of you got away pretty unscathed with that one. You lost all of your time and probably P2 as a result, but as long as you didn't end up in the barriers, I think that was a good result coming out of the kink like that.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that instead of being in the dirt or in the tire barriers. But yeah, it was still a good battle with him. I wish we could have not made contact and gone side by side a little bit longer. I think I could have held him off, but I'll take third still.
Yep, you will. And, well, moving away from the Mazdas and back to perhaps the main series that you compete in, the NASCAR Peak Entry Series. Unfortunately, you do not make the playoffs. And so what is your objective for the rest of the season there? Even though you're not competing for the big prizes that the playoff guys are competing for, you've got Chicagoland coming up. What are the games for your team, you and your team?
Yeah, it's unfortunate to not make the playoffs, but I'm still, for me, is my best season yet because I missed 2 or 3 races and was still able to get a lot of top 10s, some poles, some lap slide. So I'm hoping to carry that momentum on into these last 3-4 races, and I think Chicagoland, we're going to have a lot of fun racing there with the dynamic tracks. We'll be riding anywhere from the white line all the way to the wall, so I'm really looking forward to that one and hoping to get a top 5 there.
I wish you the best of luck. And that was Matt Buser. Back to you, Will.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Matt Buser, of course, fantastic to see him running in the NASCAR Peak Entry Series powered by iRacing. This is normally the point that we say goodnight, everyone, but we've got another race coming up, and you guys like the Pro Mazda Cup so much, well, we're bringing it back for one more race. Here tonight, final round of the championship. Very close championship, actually, Connery.
Yeah, it was a very, very close championship indeed that we saw last week, and the finale of it is coming up very, very soon between Martin Olnuldas and Gabriel Perez. There's also Everett Paddock that has a little bit of an outside shot at taking the championship win, and Stefan Ruskin as well. So the championship is oh so very close. It was 1 point between them when we finished up the broadcast last week. The gap has extended a little bit because you guys, obviously, that isn't the only race for the week, but it's still very, very close indeed, and this strength of field will decide it. Yeah, indeed so, and Jake Sperry will be one of the 2 commentators calling that event. And Jake, it's going to be a case of Draft Fest City at the Glen.
It is, and Watkins Glen proves time and time again, Will, that no matter how many times you go to Watkins Glen, no 2 races can ever be classed as the same. There's been so many great sim racing moments at the Glen that I actually struggle to count on one hand exactly how many just brilliant overtakes we see. As a season finale, I couldn't ask for anything better, and between Martin, a driver that I've seen grow up in sim racing for the last year or so, and Gabriel Perez, a driver who I hope has a bright future, you know, just having those 34 points between them is going to be very interesting. 100 between the top 3. You know, it's going to be a great showdown.
And essentially, whoever wins this race wins the championship, because coming into this week, there's 1 point between them. So whoever ends up, I would argue, in what is likely to be the biggest race of the week, gets the victory. Championship is theirs, but they would have done a lot to earn that championship.
Yes, they would have done. It's 8 weeks out of 12, so they've had to put in 8 weeks of solid performances. Sometimes they're performing all 12 weeks to try and get the best 8 possible out of them. And you never know what happens in the world of sim racing, Will. You might get one of these really crazy races where you get all these drivers like the Matt Boosters, like the Jesus Cecilias turning up, and then suddenly that SOF just skyrockets into the roof. It is that much of a difference that drivers have to turn up to every race because they don't know who's turning up. It's a who's here match that a good person that we do know, Paul Heyman, is a very big fan of in ECW.
Oh, indeed so. Indeed so. So join Jake Sperry and Jonathan Simon for that one here in actually not very long on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live. And well, Connery, tomorrow, of course, we've got to think about the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series and the Cronk Code, which continues. It's unlikely he will win the championship tomorrow. That's actually going to be in a few weeks' time in round number 11 of the championship. But, I mean, the guy's barely put a foot wrong all season. The case is now, we're going to say, will the streak go to the end of the season?
I'm thinking it's very, very likely. I've got to say that he hasn't, as you said, he hasn't put a foot wrong all season. No mistakes at all, like whatsoever. And it just seems like he's absolutely unstoppable. I've never seen a season like this in sim racing or in real life racing, where one person has just been oh so dominant every single race, just getting every single race perfect. And I don't think it's going to stop.
Yeah, of course, that's preceded by Racebot Race Day. We've got round number 10 of the Formula Renault Sim Cup and round number 10 of the RaceBot Super Cup as well. So that's tomorrow here on RaceBot TV and on iRacing Live. It all kicks off at 11:40 a.m. GMT. That's all we got time for from Will Vincent, Conor Maddock, and comments by Jake Sperry. This has been the end, almost, of Friday Night Prime Times for this season. Thank you so much for checking us out over the last 12 weeks. You can vote for the next Prime Time soon. Good night.